episode of the Sartorial Geek podcast is sponsored by Starship Therapies. Starship Therapies is a podcast that boldly explores all things pop culture, fandom, and psychology. It's hosted by Justine and Larissa, who take traditionally boring and serious topics and talk about them in a refreshing and relatable way. The show will leave you with concrete takeaways that help you better understand yourself and the world, and also create lasting change in your life, all within the power of fandom. If you enjoy these topics as much as we do, we cannot more highly suggest checking out Starship Therapies wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, welcome to the Sartorial Geek podcast. I'm Jordan Ellis of Jordan Dene, and I'm here with Kait Disney-Leugers. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. We were deciding we're going to talk about D&D today, which is like, I feel like D&D is having a resurgence. I don't know if I'm just paying more attention because I'm playing, but I feel like it's everywhere right now, and I love that.
It's totally everywhere now. I mean, it's been around since the 70s, but I think like with more popular things like Critical Role and Adventure Zone and Dice Camera Action, you're seeing it a lot more. It's a lot more visible.
That's so true, because I was going to ask if you listened to any of those like D&D podcasts, because I listened to Adventure Zone before I started playing.
Yeah, so I've listened to all of Adventure Zone, but what actually got me into playing was, I'm actually a second generation D&D player. My dad played one back in the 90s.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I didn't actually start playing till after seeing Critical Role.
Okay.
So, I mean, that was my gateway, because my dad never let me play when I was younger because he thought I was too young. So
I mean, it can get intense and scary depending on like what you're playing. So I kind of get that.
Yeah. Well, like when my dad and his friends played in the 90s, they were into they played in our basement. So there was a lot of drinking. And they did their own mods that they created. So it got a little insane. So I just sat there and played with the dice instead.
Yeah. I mean, separately, the dice are super cool. And like, you can buy like really cool versions. I just got a cool set for Christmas. Like, D&D dice are awesome.
I have a bit of a problem with dice. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to buy myself some new dice. So I have like, I
mean, at least they're useful. That's awesome. Well, it's cool when you're playing with a group too, especially if you're playing with new people, because it's not like most people have their own sets that they travel with.
Totally. And like, that's the nice thing about finding a good group of people. Like, people lend out their dice, or they'll have like an extra set that they don't care about, and they'll hand it over to you. And I mean, I've definitely been in that position where somebody new came to our table. I'm like, hey, I've got an extra set of dice. You're new. Take them, roll, like, have fun.
So how have you played, like, now that you're playing on your own, like, have you played with just like the same group of people all the time, or do you play with different groups, or like?
Yeah, so what I did starting off was I knew really nothing about D&D, so I got my player handbook, I got my set of dice, went to my local game store, and they just sat me at a table that was open, which was awesome because I never played, and everybody was super nice. They gave me a pre-gen character because I had no idea what I was doing.
And that takes a long time if you don't know what, like, I mean, even if you do know what you're doing, that takes a long time.
Yeah, so they helped me through that. But after a while, I created my first character, and I got into a group. And it started off as just they placed me there. And then 2 years later, we were this solid group. Had a two-year campaign that we just wrapped up over the early fall, which was very emotional because we had these characters that we maxed out, and we'd been together for 2 years, and we knew each other's styles. It was a parting of ways, really, because we were retiring the characters. I was on the verge of moving out of the state, so it went from being just, I have no idea what I'm doing, please help me, to you guys are my best friends, and these characters have been on such a journey together that it was super emotional.
Were those people you knew before, or did you meet from the game?
Nope. When I went to a Wednesday night game, they sat me at this table, and I never left.
That's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. I've never played with, I've only played 2 campaigns, but I've never played with people I didn't know. Yeah, if you're doing something for 2 years, you're going to become like best friends.
Yeah, and it was great because they pushed me not just as a player to be better at role playing, because we got super into role playing. We started off as kind of like these murder hobos and just like kill everything, and then went to being very much more story driven, very much more role playing. And yeah, so I mean, that helped me shape as a player, but also they got me, my friends pressured me into the DMing. So I started DMing games as well.
Oh, cool.
So how many games have you played? Can you count, or are there like too many?
There are too many because
awesome.
We played every Wednesday for 2 years with, occasionally having breaks for holidays and stuff. And then one of the friends of the group started another campaign because we did Tomb of Annihilation. It's a huge mod, hard as shit to get through. We play that every other Sunday. So I was doing every Wednesday games and then every other Sunday games as well.
That's so awesome.
So I've lost track of how many games I played at this point.
Have you ever done like a one-off, like just like play for a day and then that's like the whole thing? I've heard of that, but I've never done it.
So I've never done that just with a one-off. I know like the game store I went to, they would host cons every like couple of months or every other month where they would do that. They would just have, one big campaign. It's a 12-hour like epic, and then they call it a done deal. I have done like day-long, like 12-hour segments where we did our big wrap-up of our campaign. We went 12 hours, and that was the end of our campaign. That's so
awesome. I love that.
It was awesome, but so stressful. Like we got to hour 11, we're in the boss battle, and none of us are sitting down. We're like pacing around the room. It was so stressful.
Oh my gosh. I played, so I have a friend who I think played as a kid and then he sort of brought it back. So like a while ago, like maybe like 7 years ago, we played, there's like a Star Wars version. So we played that for a while. And then the same DM, we started playing, I guess it was like 7 months ago. We play every Thursday, but it's nice because it's like, it's actually a pretty big group there, like 9 of us. And there are people who have never played before and there are people who have played like their whole lives, which is really fun.
Yeah, and totally. Like my group was kind of that way. We all kind of came into D&D around the same time, but there was originally 7 of us. We added an 8th, and then he moved, so we were back to 7. But we had, I guess you could call it guest players. So we had my dad came to visit. So I got to play with my dad, which was a dream come true for me.
That's so cool. So I love that.
Yeah, so we had a couple of people's dads. So we called it Dungeons and Dads.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
So we had dads, we've had moms, and then my sister even came to play. So we've had siblings involved too. So so we'd bring in people just to come play one-offs with us.
I love that. I guess I've just realized for anyone who has no idea how D&D works, we should probably give a little brief, like, how do you play? Because it's an unusual thing.
Yeah.
Like, it is kind of crazy.
I know it seems like kind of crazy going into it, and then once you're there, you're like, wow, it's not that bad. But going in, it's a little overwhelming for sure.
Yeah, if you, and I think, well, I've only played with one DM, or that stands for Dungeon Master, right?
Yeah.
I like actually don't know what a lot of things stand for. So I've only played with one DM, but I imagine that changes the game too. Like if they're very, very strict, or like walking you through how to do everything, or like I'm sure that changes how the game feels a lot, how they're sort of
for sure
running it.
I mean, a DM can make or break a game for anybody. It depends on your play style too. Because some people are much more strict on the rules and they're going to follow it to the letter. Because like right now, most people are playing D&D 5th edition. It's probably the most welcoming and easy play mechanics for new players. But again, some people stick to the rules very strictly, and some kind of play loosey-goosey. You get your homebrew rules. People who are much more willing to kind of bend, not break rules, but bend them a lot.
Do you kind of have to, so before we started playing, we did we all have to agree how we're going to play, or else, is that kind of normal to be like, okay, is everyone obsessed with the rules? Is everyone a little more chill, or do you sort of just see how it goes? And
yeah, I mean, I guess that depends. Like if you go the route I did starting D&D, which is I went to a local game store, female-owned game store, so it was awesome.
That's awesome.
They kind of they'll place you with people just so you get a feel of how different tables work. And it all depends on the DM. They're going to kind of lead how the table is played. Either they're going to rein you in if you're getting real crazy, or they're just going to kind of let things fly. So I guess it's just, especially starting out, if you go into like a game store, is trying different tables to see how different DMs work. If there's, some will be, like I said, murder hobos. It's all about kill, kill, kill.
Right.
Let's get through this quickly. Boom, boom, boom. And then there's going to be some that, will kind of let you ride it out. Like, let's see how these interactions go. Let's see how the role playing goes. And role playing can be kind of scary at first, if you're shy.
Yeah, that is definitely the part that I am like not great at.
I mean, I started out the same way. I was very nervous. I'm an introverted person, so trying to role play a character that I didn't quite know yet was just very weird to me. But then I got comfortable around people. And, there were times where I was playing with my group where we didn't even roll any combat. We sat there and just role played for 4 hours.
That's so fun. That's so fun.
So
I love that.
I guess it's finding, what's comfortable for you, finding a table that's comfortable for you, finding the people that you're going to be comfortable around, and going with your play style is I think super important.
Are there there's so much cool stuff about D&D, and I feel like one of the things that makes it fun is that everyone can like it for a different reason. Like, what's your favorite part about playing?
I'd say story building,
Yeah, cool.
Because like I said, I had this character for 2 years, and she started off as just, I had a tiefling rogue.
Okay.
Started off with kind of a vague idea of what she was. And then by the end of it, after 2 years, I had such a rich story behind her, a rich history. There was bonds formed with people, both players and NPCs. And there was so much behind it that to me, it felt like I'd been on this journey with this character. So
but seriously, you spent every week for 2 years with the story.
Yeah. And my DM was super cool about asking, outside of the game, is there something you want to accomplish? Is there something you want to add to this? How should I build off of your character's motivation? So I had a DM who was super invested in our characters as well.
That I honestly do think I'm really, really lucky that the one DM I've played with is great. And I can imagine playing with, I can definitely see how that changes everything.
Yeah. I might be a little biased, but I think my DM is the best. She's fantastic. Her storytelling was phenomenal. She, like I said, she got invested in the characters themselves. So they meant a lot to her, and she wanted to do them justice too. When she had us role playing or building character motivations, or, towards the end, she tried to give us all our own storyline to follow. So we all got some kind of closure to the characters as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. I've actually never finished a campaign. I've only played 2, and one we're in the middle of, and the other one just sort of life got in the way and it just dropped off. So that, I can't even imagine how emotional that is.
Yeah.
Because it's your real life too. You're stopping something as yourself that you do every week. And then there's this character. I imagine it's being an actor and finishing a TV series, and you're like, oh my gosh.
It was because we did the big final episode kind of thing. And then we did an epilogue where we kind of had a mini adventure. And then our DM went through each and every character and told us how the rest of our lives played out, how each character died, taking into account what we wanted. And by the end of it, half of us are just sobbing.
Yeah, of course.
And we're afterwards, we're hugging each other. It's oh, I love you. This has been amazing. And we even had another game set up for a new campaign, but it was, it was coming to an end of this group, these characters. We were, we had a group name where we were the Inhumans, because nobody in the group was a human character.
That's funny.
And it all came from a mod we did, which we were in a city that hated any non-humans. So it was very emotional, and especially at the time, that was one of my last games, because I was moving out. So it was not only am I saying bye.
Oh my gosh, that's even more emotional. Yeah, you're actually moving away at the same time.
Yeah, so it was a mess. On top of leaving, I was hormonal and everything, because I'm pregnant. So it's just
that changes everything too. Oh my gosh, do you have a favorite type of character to play?
I love rogues. So my first character that I was given, it was a pre-gen. I got to pick, and I picked a rogue. So then when I built my first character, I built a rogue, and I love them because I played an arcane trickster rogue, so kind of a mix of magic but also stabbing.
That's awesome.
And I loved it because it was a lot of fun, especially because my DM let me bend some rules. So at the end of it, I had a rogue on a broom, and she would swoop down and stab with like booming blade, and so
oh my god,
and then like fly away.
That's so awesome.
And my dex was, because like by the end of it I was a level 20 rogue, and I had a boon that gave me a +10 to my dex, so my dexterity modifier was a +30.
What? I've also never played to like high levels either, and I've heard that like things just get crazy.
Oh yeah, well, like once you're up there, you're just like you're a demigod by that point. You know,
yeah,
super powered.
I'm so excited for that. I think we're going to be playing for a very long time, and I can't. We're like all at level 2 right now, so we're pretty far from that.
Yeah, squishy. But, yeah, I think everyone in our group at one point was killed and resurrected.
Wow.
Because at lower levels, I mean, you're pretty squishy.
Yeah.
And even as you get higher, we had a character in our group. He was our bard. We called him Sucky Bait because my DM would have succubus, and without fail, they would go after him because some of his he dumped everything into charisma, so some of his other modifiers were really low, so she could get him under thrall in a minute. And
oh wow,
I think she killed him in one time, knocked him down to 0 hit points 4 times in one session.
Oh my gosh,
because we were fighting an ancient blue dragon. She just targeted him. So we all swooping down like healing spells on him just to keep him up. And I think we had to do a resurrection on him once because of that.
That is insane and awesome. What's what I'm sure there are like so many, but what's one of your like favorite like moments or like storylines, or like what's one of your favorite like things that you've gotten to play?
That's a lot. Actually,
I know that's like a loaded question, so it doesn't have to be your top favorite because I'm sure that's so hard.
No, there's a lot. I think there was a lot we did. So my character and our bard character were actually in-game cousins. We decided this because like one session we kept rolling the same number every time, and we were both tieflings. So we're like, you know what?
Creepy,
family.
but awesome.
And so we did a year off in game. So it was like over the winter break. And our DM took us to do individual sessions. So my character and the bard character said we had all this money and we had family land that we found, so we're going to build a tavern.
That's awesome.
So we took the session, played like 4 hours, took a session of building a tavern, running a business. And then at the same time, my character had picked up kind of like a boyfriend.
Okay.
That we had to reincarnate because he was disintegrated by like a beholder, but it was like a super beholder. So
okay.
We reincarnated him, and then he spent the year with us at the tavern. And like my friend who was the bard, unbeknownst to me, was like texting the DM, like telling her like I'm teaching him how to speak Infernal so that he can tell her he loves her. And she made me do relationship roles with him as well, and I kept rolling. I rolled 3 natural 20s in a row for this, so it was like true love kind of thing.
That's amazing.
So yeah, the tavern kind of became our home base from then on, for the rest of like our campaign.
That's so cool.
This episode of the Sartorial Geek podcast is sponsored by Jordan Dene. Jordan Dene is your one-stop shop for fandom fashion. We've got everything you need to put together a casual cosplay outfit or add a little geekery to your home. Our designs are all inspired by our favorite characters in stories throughout history and pop culture. You can check us out at conventions all over the country at jordandene.com and all over the internet at Jordan Dene NYC.
So like if anyone doesn't know how D&D works, it's amazing because there's like a storyline and there are things you are like sort of supposed to do, or there are paths to go down, but then you can it is role playing too. So then you can do stuff like that where you're like, oh, I just have this money and I'm just going to do a thing over here. Or like, I'm just going to not go down the path and do this other thing and we'll see what happens. If your DM is like down for some creative.
Yeah, if your DM's down for it, you can go in really crazy directions. I mean, I had the first game I DM'd, I was doing a mod. So a mod already pre-created. Usually it's put out by Wizards of the Coast. And then it kind of gives you all the directions for how to move a story along and what kind of checks people have to do. So I was running a mod from Volo's Guide to Monsters that had just come out, and it was a 2-hour mod that we ended up playing for 4 hours because the mod ended, but they were still going. So I had to just kind of improvise for the next 2 hours how the story was going to go based upon their decisions. So I was just kind of making stuff up as I went. I had them in Phandalin, and they were like getting into crazy nonsense. I think I had one of the characters end up being drugged and kidnapped and put into an asylum. And then there was a whole story where the rest of them were trying to bust him out.
And that's the role-playing part. Like, that's what sort of it. Playing D&D kind of feels like playing like an open world video game, except you're building the world like in your mind, so you can make up what's happening sometimes, which sounds insane. It works. It sounds crazy, but it's very fun. I mean, you can't make up everything. Like your DM, you have to check. You're not just like, and now I'm a millionaire and I have unlimited power. Like, there are rules, but it's pretty fun.
No, you can definitely have a lot of crazy adventures that, they kept me on my toes, and that it was the first time I'd ever DM'd. So I'm like, what are you guys doing to me?
But that's an intense intro to that.
We've been playing for so long together that, they trusted me to take them through the story, and I trusted them not to completely railroad me in the story. And so we kind of, if I ran into trouble, I had to, everybody at the table has DM'd at some point.
That's nice. So that's also, they understand that being on that side, so they're not trying to ruin your life.
They gave me a hard time just for fun because it was my first time, and we like to give each other a hard time. But they also helped me through it. So if I ran into a spot where I got a little flustered or something, they're like, "Hey, just take a minute. Are you sure you want to do that? Or hey, maybe you should have this kind of check." I'm like, gotcha. And I'm taking notes in my journal and everything. So it was
awesome.
It was good to have those kind of people around as well. Even though they pressure me to be
Yeah. Because you can kind of, depending on your personality, you can sort of test people and push people. So yeah, it depends on like how intense the people you're playing with are.
Yeah. And we definitely had through that time where we'd have people join, who would pop in for a game or two, and we could tell they just didn't fit our vibe in a group.
Yeah.
We were too much of a rule stickler, like trying to call out rules to our DM. And it's like, hey, DM's choice. They're God in this game. So
well, and that's like what you're saying. There are different playing styles. So like, if that's how you want to play, you should play with other people who want to do that too, or else it won't be fun for anyone. So I think that makes a lot of sense, like finding people who are into the style that you're into. Yeah,
because the number one thing about D&D is it should be fun. If you're not having fun, don't.
Right,
you're not in the right group.
Yeah, totally. So you got into it, like you knew about it from your dad playing, and then did you listen to the like gaming? You said you got into it from Critical Role. That's like what got you back into it. That's a podcast, right?
So it was a web series, but they also have it on podcast form as well. So it was on Geek and Sundry. I think they've now kind of gone off on their own in their second campaign. So it was,
awesome.
You didn't have to watch the videos, but sometimes it's fun because people, are wild hands and stuff. So it's a lot of fun to see facial reactions as well. But they do have it on podcast on iTunes as well.
I've heard of that a lot. So like if you are curious about how like what D&D is, I feel like a podcast is a fun way to basically be like a fly on the wall, but with people who are intentionally trying to make it for the audience. Mm-hmm. Like Adventure Zone is like that too, where it's meant to be entertaining and like for other people to listen to. So it's probably easier than just like sitting. You can just go watch a game too, but podcasts like that are a nice way to get into it because you can like kind of start understanding like game mechanics, and it's really helpful to have some type of idea in your head of how it works before you go in blind, I think.
Yeah, and the podcasts are not the end all be all. Like, you don't have to play like this. You know, in Critical Role, they're much more role playing centric because they're all voice actors. And,
right. Right.
Adventure Zone is a lot more, you know, wild and crazy because they're family, and rules are mostly suggestions for them.
It's a lot of them just messing with each other on purpose, like totally.
I mean, it's not the end all be all. You know, you have like dice camera action that tries to keep a little more tighter, or something like Bardbastic, which they're a band that they're all bards, so they always try to incorporate music into theirs. So it's,
oh wow,
you know, it's all about how you want to play, and those podcasts are not the end all be all of how you can play.
That's very true. Like, they are for entertainment factor, so remember that. Like, you don't have to play. That's a very good point.
But they're a great window into seeing how mechanics can work. Because, like, you know, I watched Critical Role, I'm like, I want to do this. This looks like fun.
Yeah. So then the way you found it is, because I've seen a couple different ways of getting into it. So I like that you found a gaming shop that has, like, did they call it something special, or is it just like D&D, like open D&D, or like how did you find? So
I went to Wizards of the Coast website, and they have, you put in your address, you put in your zip code, and they'll show you local game shops in the area that participate in D&D and like Magic and all that stuff.
Oh, cool.
So that's what I did. I found the nearest one to me, Isle of Gamers in Santa Clara, California. Shout out.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, if anyone lives near there, that's clearly a great place to go.
And they did Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I went Wednesdays because that was more the open table sit down. At the time I went, it was more the open night, and Tuesdays was more of the campaigns. That kind of switched as the years went on, because campaigns kind of became more of a Wednesday thing. But people could just walk in, and they could be sat at a table with whoever had open. You know, it wasn't just, you know, people in their 20s like me. It was, you know, there was young kids, there was older couples, there's been people who've been playing for decades, there was people who just showed up for the first time. It was a good mix of not just dudes, there was a bunch of women as well. You know, my table was half women, half guys, so, you know, it was a good mix, and it was, you know, felt like a very welcoming, open environment too. So.
Have you ever heard of someone, because I have a group of friends that just did this, but I haven't really asked like how it went. There, you can, if you are up for it, you can just like buy like an intro book, or like you can buy like an intro kit to play like in your own home with your own group too, right? Totally. Like, there's like a way to do that.
So they have like the D&D starter kit you can buy.
That's what it is. Okay.
So you can buy that and just start in your own home, but there's a lot of options for playing. Like, I know there's some places that just don't have local groups or don't have that kind of open environment. So that's when you have things like Roll20, which you can play online now. So you can just connect with a group anywhere, and everything's online, and you have your dice algorithm online, so you can't really fudge your numbers.
Right, right.
You can create maps that way, and in general, just connect with anybody all over the world to play D&D.
That's so cool. And then there are other websites too, like, is it D&D and Beyond that you can like build a character sheet like in the site?
Yeah.
And
so D&D and Beyond launched, I think, like 2 years ago, maybe it was last year, but it's really built since then. So you can actually build out your character sheet from there, and you can use that to play. And actually, they show this on Critical Role because they kind of have a co-sponsor thing going. And you can actually keep track of your character sheet and everything from there. It has a great resources that it's in not just the player handbook, but in all the mods that are out there. So you have like Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordecaiden's, and all of that's already on there. And there are some things that you have to buy, obviously, but it's a great resource for finding everything, you know, from magic items, armor, to how you can build a character and races.
Yeah, and like you can, because a lot of us were new players, you can like look up what your character, like what they can do, and be reminded about their spells and how things work. Yeah. Like, it's really nice to have all of that in a website that's searchable, which is great.
Totally. And it's a lot easier than, if you don't want to cart around a ton of books, especially because I've got my D&D bag, and it's bulging from just everything to carry. Because I keep my player handbook, my Volo's guide. I have a whole binder that's of all my different character sheets in there as well. Plus I keep a notebook where I like to record things that happen or funny things my friend said during a game. And of course, the snacks. I always kept snacks in there. They called it my bug out bag.
So smart. That is very smart. Do you ever make little figures for your characters?
Yeah. So I used what is it called?
Is it Hero Forge?
Hero Forge. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I used too. It's awesome.
I loved it. So like I had one. I have a couple for different characters, but I had one for my main rogue, and then when we got towards the end of our last game, I got one of the metal ones made. So
that's the really cool thing about Hero Forge. First of all, you can go and just like build characters and not get them actually made, and you can just do that forever. Just like piece together cool people, cool figures. But then when you go to buy them, there are different options of like cheaper plastic, more expensive plastic. You can get like bronze and like different metals. It's awesome.
It's pretty great. And it's all like customizable. You can even like put, if you want to customize the base to have it say something. So when I got my metal one on the bottom, it says the Inhumans.
That's so cool. And then you can paint them if you get really into it. We had like a painting day and all painted ours, which was awesome.
Mine are unpainted just because I don't trust myself.
It was very stressful. I was like, cool, I could just ruin this character. I could never want to look at this again, depending on how this goes.
It's great. So, we have Hero Forge like that, where you can do this most customizable, but any game shop will carry, more generic ones as well. And not just like different characters.
Oh, that's cool.
You can get different things to place on your boards, like little plants, or, I had, I think a wolf or something like that. So you can get different little things to put on your board as well, or animal companions and whatnot.
Oh, that's so awesome. I didn't know that. I'm learning so much because I'm like such a newbie. I'm such a newbie to all of this. But that's what's cool. You can play at any level. I guess it's like a video game. Like you can play barely knowing what you're doing, which is what I do, or you can be like an expert and play so much for years, and it's the same game, and it's so fun.
Yeah, and in my experience, everyone I've met playing D&D has been super helpful in wanting to get more people playing. So they're very open to taking the time and sitting with you and explaining through how things work. So you're not just kind of left with like, okay, I have these dice. What do I do? There's always going to be somebody there to help you. It's, and this is just my experience. I can't speak to everybody's, of course, but the D&D community has been very welcoming to me and my friends.
That's awesome. I love hearing that because there's nothing that's more of a bummer than like something that's really cool that all the people in it are not super cool. So same thing. I'm positive that it's not like that everywhere, but same thing. I've had great experiences, which is awesome.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are people out there who are still into like, this is my thing. I don't want new people, or, don't like the fact women play, but the reality is there are more women playing D&D now than ever before. And there's always been women playing D&D, but even more so now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So if you are listening to this and you're like, I super want to play, you can, I think going to your local gaming shop, if you have one, is a great idea. You can ask me questions. I am not an expert, but are you up for people like finding you online and asking D&D questions?
Totally. I love talking about D&D. So you can find me on Twitter. It's Kait Liger. It's KATLIGER. I'll talk about D&D all day, every day.
That's awesome.
Come find me if you're having problems, finding a local group. I can at least, help give you resources to at least point you in the right direction to finding people, or, Roll20 is a great resource if there isn't one near you.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for chatting. I just want to go play more now. This has been the best.
I love talking about D&D, and like I said, I haven't got to play recently just because of the move and baby on the way. But, rest assured my kids.
After that, you can get back into it.
Once my son's born, I'm going to get back into it. He's probably going to be born rolling a D20 or something.
There are so many cute baby outfits that have dice and stuff on them now. You can really, that's going to be awesome.
So I'm going to, hopefully he'll be the third generation in the family to play.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on and hanging out today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for listening. I hope all of you go play D&D now because it's so much fun. And if you want to hear more episodes like this, you can subscribe to our podcast. You can leave us a rating or a review. That would be really helpful to us. Or check out our Patreon if you want to support and help us keep the show going. But have an awesome week. Stay nerdy, and we will talk to you later. Bye.